Last December, my boyfriend, let's call him Jason, and I hit a rough patch. Work stress, money worries, and the gray sludge of winter made our little apartment feel smaller each week. Jason started logging longer hours because a senior analyst quit, and I started feeling like furniture he stepped around on his way from laptop to fridge. One Friday, after he begged off date night to finish a report, I called my best friend Claire and declared we were doing girls' night properly, which for me meant vodka sodas and club lighting bright enough to forget the sleet outside. Somewhere around midnight, my phone died. That fact mattered later, but in the moment, it just freed me from checking whether Jason had texted. A group of guys offered us shots. One of them, tall, freckles, disposable camera smile, danced close, then closer, until there wasn't air between us. I remember thinking, I could leave right now, or I could follow this tug and feel wanted again for one stupid night. I chose the tug. We ended up in a rideshare to his place. The next morning, I vomited guilt into his bathroom sink and lied to Claire that I spent the night at her couch because I'd lost my keys. She raised an eyebrow but let it drop. For 2 weeks, I carried that secret like a lit cigarette behind my back, pretending nothing was burning while smoke curled into everything. Jason noticed, of course. He asked why I flinched when he touched me, why I stared at the ceiling after sex instead of curling into him. I couldn't hold the lie and blurted the truth on a Sunday. His face crumpled in a way I didn't know faces could, and I realized I'd smashed something irreplaceable. Afterwards, he drove us home in silence, then told me he needed space to think, but didn't want to make a decision in shock. The next week was a measured hell of sleeping on couch, counseling intake calls, and scheduling STD tests. I latched on to his restraint as proof we could work through this. I poured my anxiety into grand gestures: delete every guy on Snapchat, quit drinking, sign up for therapy. Somewhere under the penance, though, I still feared the emptiness of being alone and unadmired, and that fear kept humming. Enter disaster number 2. My office moved next to a fancy new gym, and I treated a membership like a fresh start. Sober workouts, clean living, all that. The attention hit me on day 1. I was the new girl among sculpted regulars, and one of them, Drew, spotted my lifts, joked about my form, DM'd me stuff. Then we started snapping. After a late session, we grabbed smoothies, and the conversation angled to relationships. I admitted my boyfriend and I were in repair. He smirked, called me gorgeous, said any guy who risked losing me was crazy. That click of validation felt like a drug I'd sworn off, but left within reach. The snaps turned risque almost overnight. Clothes came off, we touched one evening in a quiet corner, and I gave him head. Still, I told myself it was just a silly ego boost, all while deleting notifications so Jason wouldn't see. Deep down, I knew what road I was sliding onto, yet I kept adding momentum. Then came Valentine's Day. Jason surprised me with dinner reservations and a handwritten letter about rebuilding trust. As he spoke, my pulse jackhammered with guilt because my phone in my purse kept buzzing Drew's name. That night I broke. I confessed the nudes, the emotional cheating, the near miss at the gym. Jason's shoulders sagged, and this time he didn't suggest therapy. The following morning, he told me he had booked an Airbnb for a month and would sort his things after March end when the lease expired. I moved through the next weeks in a sort of dissociative haze. Claire called me self-destructive. My therapist asked when I first learned external praise equaled self-worth. Every mirror became a tribunal. Part of me wanted to chase Jason, prove my remorse, but another reckless shard wanted to binge on distraction, to dive into Drew's attention and drown the shame. I did neither. I froze. Jason, meanwhile, stopped answering messages beyond logistics. He Venmo'd half the rent with a note, "We'll pick up books Saturday." When he arrived, he knocked, collected his things, and left without making eye contact. I still had hope. 2 months later, I know there's none anymore. I betrayed him twice. I broke my own values, loyalty, honesty, because I craved the cheap high of being noticed. My question isn't how to win him back. I've forfeited that privilege. I need to know how to face the hollow parts of myself that made this possible and keep me in cycles of seeking validation, then despising myself afterward. Update: I got a lot of advice on my first post on how to win my BS back. However, in the practical realm, Jason and I are officially done. When the lease ended, he signed it over to me, moved to a studio closer to his office, and mailed a neatly folded stack of my letters and photos I'd given him. Not even a note. Drew texted twice after seeing an Insta story of my sad breakup. I didn't answer. I won't pretend virtue. I hovered over the reply button long enough to feel the familiar tug, then forced myself to set the phone face down and breathe for a full 60 seconds. That tiny act of choosing discomfort over attention felt like lifting 5 pounds after surgery. Pathetic on paper, monumental inside my chest. Therapy has shifted from crisis management to digging into my lifelong hunger for praise. My therapist had me chart relationships back to childhood. Patterns popped like neon signs. Dad traveling weekly, mom juggling jobs, teenage me discovering that flirting could score both good grades from lenient teachers and weekend invites from older boys. Validation turned transactional before I learned the difference between genuine connection and cheap applause. Understanding that doesn't wash away accountability, but it gives me coordinates to map where to start rebuilding actual self-worth. A humbling moment came 2 weeks ago when Claire met me for brunch and confessed she'd always admired my fearless spontaneity. I laughed, then cried, realizing most friends view that trait positively, while I now see how often I wielded it recklessly. I told her fearless is misleading. It's fear in hyperdrive, afraid of stillness, of being ordinary. Owning that aloud made us both quiet. She squeezed my hand and said, "Boring might save your life for a while. Let it." I'm trying. Daily life is intentionally dull right now. Work, therapy, evening walks without earbuds so I can hear my thoughts, journaling 3 pages of unfiltered mess each night. The urge to download a dating app flares whenever loneliness pinches, but I treat it like a nicotine craving. Acknowledge, breathe, let it pass, do push-ups if I have to. Most cravings last 8 minutes. I time them. I won't romanticize consequences into a tidy lesson. Some mornings the weight of what I've lost sits so heavy I have to physically roll onto my stomach before swinging my legs off the bed because the idea of facing sunlight feels ridiculous. Other times I catch myself thinking, "You're single, 30, attractive. Why punish yourself?" That voice is the old switch begging for electricity. I'm learning to answer because I need to generate my own light before I plug into someone else's grid again. Jason's final message, emailed through our landlord, said only that I could keep the security deposit refund since I'm staying. That practical generosity hurt worse than anger. It means he's past the point of wanting anything back, even money. I drafted a long apology letter, read it aloud to my therapist, and decided not to send it. He knows I'm sorry. More words might serve me, not him. Instead, I donated the deposit equivalent to a local domestic violence shelter in both our names. It's not penance. It's a gesture toward becoming a person whose actions align with stated values. Where does that leave me? Alone, sober, scared, but oddly hopeful. The core conflict hasn't changed. I betrayed someone because I couldn't sit with the discomfort of feeling unseen. Now the task is to learn to see myself clearly enough that attention from others feels nice, not necessary. The stakes are my future relationships, my self-respect, and a promise to never again offer love with one hand while keeping the other behind my back crossing fingers. I told my therapist last session that I finally understand why Jason refused reconciliation. For him to take me back, he'd have to deny the reality I taught him twice. He chose to honor reality, and in a strange way, that's the most loving boundary anyone has ever set for me. My job now is to honor it too, by changing whether anyone sees it or not. If I ever write here again, I hope it's to share progress measured not in months since D-Day, but in days I've lived congruently. Thanks for reading. If you're a fellow wayward still mid-spiral, know that the ground doesn't appear all at once. It shows up inch by inch while you stand still long enough to feel it. Standing still is terrifying, but so is free falling forever. I've done both. The ground, shaky as it feels, is better.